Hello and welcome back to another banger with your favorite dripped out Ukrainian. And in today's video I've actually got some exciting news. Check this out. I've inherited a familial banner that actually has my last name on it. Whoever can read Cyrillic can translate it and confirm, because all my followers high-key know me IRL and I've got no bread, no money, no movement, no emotion over. In today's video we're going to be discussing why you gotta learn the skill of empathy, harness it, and why it's hikey the most useful thing of all time. Let's get it, let's go. So first of all, let's define empathy. And the definition of empathy is the ability to feel what others feel and the ability to be able to see things from their perspective. And you can make a very big mistake with understanding the core concept of empathy, and that is when you take empathy as projection and you actually project your own feelings onto others, which you cannot do, as everyone has different paths, different experiences, and everyone experiences life differently, which is obvious. However, a lot of people make that mistake and they'll go in and rush to certain conclusions because they're processing a situation with their state of mind whilst they're failing to account for someone else's experiences. And you don't want to do that, because if you do that, you instantly fail empathy. For why empathy is important: empathy is important as it provides you with a different point of view in life. And in life, probably the most important thing knowledge-wise that you can have is obtain as many points of view as you can possibly obtain. That is because humans interact with other humans on a daily basis. And if you understand how human interactions work at the core level and have a high emotional intelligence level, that will directly correlate to the betterment of your life, principally because you'll be able to predict more situations, you'll be able to identify upcoming threats, you'll be able to identify people who need your help the most, etc., etc. You don't need me to boil it down for every possible instance of empathy being important, obviously. Now, the way you could practice empathy is through setting certain predictions in your mind to how someone will act based upon their history, their history with you, their preferences, blah, 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 blah. You can make predictions and test essentially your intuition, as intuition might be a very underappreciated concept. However, the thing is, what intuition really boils down to is the basic, most primal level of thought that you have, that is comprised not of your copes and your precognitions, but straight facts, and is like the quickest, most primal level of thought, which can turn out to be false when you're just paranoid. However, if you know you're in the right state of mind, your intuition should actually be one of the most useful tools for you, as sadly people don't really say what they mean. So through this exercise of testing the correctness of your intuition, what you don't want to do is become delusional and believe that any instinct that you feel is the right one. However, it can act as a crutch and a sort of framework that you can base your actions around. And later on, you obviously will want to be able to reflect upon your intuition's results once the situation has passed into the future. And I say this because this is a bit of a different topic. However, I also wanted to bring it up, is that you don't want to be holding grudges against people. However, you want to know what certain people are capable of, how far they'll be able to go, whether it be to help you or to spite you, to hurt you. You want to take note of that, because even though people can change, at the same time you will be able to know that they have those weapons in their arsenal. And they don't always, sometimes people learn from their mistakes. However, if you're not empathetic enough and let's say you push them a bit too far, it's highly possible the nuclear options will come out if someone is capable of that. So you have to remember who you can be trolling a bit more and who you can't be trolling a bit more. Because when people say they're friends to you, that's one thing. However, with empathy and intuition, you'll be able to know who's actually friends with you, who you can joke around with, who you can like be a little bit disrespectful towards jokingly, and who will not be able to take that and will actually have a grudge against you. It's like very little things that you have to take note and remember. Have to be thoughtful at all times. Now, another reason I'd like to bring up empathy is that it allows you to connect with anyone on a way more personal level. And empathy is also achieved, let's say, through deeper personal connections. So let's say it's someone, a friend that you've known for a long time, or your family member. Empathy could be achieved through shared experiences that you have discussed with someone. Empathy could be achieved also through your own wisdom. And as you go through life, you obviously start off without knowing anything. But then when you learn, you realize that in the world there do exist types of people. That isn't to say that everyone can be fully categorized into one category and predictable. However, to a degree, that is how it works. And if you see someone with a certain life, with a certain amount, like with certain role models, with certain books that they like favored, there's certain stories that they favorite, sports, blah, 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 the people that they talk to, you'll be able to predict in a way what they're going to do. And that's what I mean by knowledge, is that it isn't necessarily universal knowledge. However, on case by case basis, you'll be able to use it, if you know what I mean. And probably the most important point about empathy is that I do believe that everything you do comes back to you in a way. And I believe that in a very, very sort of literal way, as when you take out your anger on someone else. The thing with, I know this is a physical law. First law of thermodynamics. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not tweaking, whatever you do in this world, it'll be a sort of butterfly effect. However small it may be, it will be a butterfly effect. So let's say you take out your anger on your kid, your anger will go bully your kid, your kid will go bully someone, blah, 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 blah. And you can follow this chain of events. And one specific example, there is a massive influx of narcissist men because the men that are ignored for a long time spend so much time in isolation that they end up loving themselves more than they love anyone else. Because when you are isolated for a very long time, you turn into an independent person. Like, people may take a long time to turn independent, but when someone turns independent, they will be more likely to be a narcissist, because like that's how a brain works. You got to be, the brain is very adaptable, and those adaptations aren't always very healthy. It's like if you live in a low trust environment, you'll become a very paranoid person. However, that's where you have to be, in a low trust environment. So like when you're very lonely, you'll turn out to love yourself more than anyone else, essentially. And so when you counter that in and you think about how I'm treating others, you have to realize it isn't just, oh, I did this nice thing for someone else and that made me feel good in the moment and it made them feel good in the moment. It's like you did this nice thing to someone else, and that made them do something nice to someone else. And that, when you put out positive energy into the world becomes a better place. No matter how little of it you put out, it's just a matter of energy not dissipating and staying around. And no good deed goes unnoticed. Either there's no bad deed goes unnoticed. And you just got to keep that in mind at all times. And lastly, probably the most important point about empathy, and like the core of empathy is essentially understanding someone else's pain. because I do believe pain is probably the greatest driver of any sort of action in life, whether it be the pain of a heavy load on your shoulders that pushes you towards, I don't know, providing for your family, or making your life better, whether it be the pain of heartbreak that pushes you to better yourself. Pain is a great devastator that also can be used as energy, obviously. And one secret, not necessarily a secret, but just like a piece of wisdom that can be applied to everything in life, is that when something causes you pain, you should not go away and waste it. Use that pain to better your life. Do not go and destroy someone else's life. Do not go and destroy yourself. Use that pain to put it in a field where it'll actually benefit you long term. So let's say someone dumps you or whatever. Don't go and do some petty shit like, oh, let me go and get with 20 girls now and post over on my Instagram. And like, I'll go broke in the meantime, and I won't be taking care of my health, blah, 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 blah. I'll be partying all the time, but like, I gotta silence the pain. No, because at the same time, when you destroy yourself through pain caused by someone else, that gives them the moral victory, because they see, oh wow, I was able to harm that person. You can never show defeat. You can feel defeated within your heart, but showing defeat is what actually makes you defeated, if you know what I mean. Until you admit yourself that you've been defeated, you haven't been defeated. So stay unbothered if you've been caused pain. Don't take it out on anyone else. And if you can predict someone else's pain, because not every event affects every person the same in a way, you know what I mean? It's like someone could be brought up without a parent and be totally fine, but someone else could be brought up without a parent and they could totally like ruin their life in a way. And so when you understand how different pains affect different people, you'll be able to understand what their actual thought process is. And so, yeah, I believe that pain is obviously the easiest way to really empathize with someone. However, you also have to be conscious of the limitations of your own empathy, because no one is perfect, no one is all-knowing, and whilst empathy is a skill that you can harness and develop, it is also just a sort of pseudoscience. It's not something that is certain, and it can only help you make certain decisions. However, it can't be your blind stick that you walk through life with. You still have to be able to see fact over because empathy is a sort of delusion within your own head. And it's not a major delusion. However, people are guided by delusions in the end of the day. Delusion of hope, delusion of success that is coming, delusion of a prosperous life that will come after a life of suffering. No one's guaranteed that, but you want to believe, right? And delusion could be a very powerful tool if used correctly. However, it could also lead you down a, let's say, a path without an end where you'll get lost. And so always check with fact. Make sure you aren't running with a conclusion for too long, because sometimes you make a conclusion and then you think it's certain, and then you make another conclusion on top of it, and it sort of turns into this massive like internal game of broken phone within your own thoughts, and that's when you become a schizophrenic, delusional person. And so to wrap up this video, just remember that this isn't a malevolent tool to control people, because if you're a really good empath and you can fully identify with someone, that could easily allow you to become a manipulator, as you will know what that person wants, what that person needs, and that will lead you to have power over them essentially, and you don't want to be doing that. Empathy isn't used for manipulation. Empathy is used to help those in need. Empathy is used to leave those behind that are lying to you to your face. Empathy is used for the self-benefitment and allowing yourself to be a stronger person, to be able to be a crutch for those in need, obviously. And that is essentially what I wanted to get across with this video, is that we have to be more compassionate towards others and truly understand that hate in any form and aggression towards someone else is never justifiable. Even though it might be justifiable in your head, long term, once you look at the greater picture and isolate yourself, once you destroy the ego, that's when you realize that it's all a never-ending cycle with love or hate. And it's essentially, which feedback loop do you want to be fueling with your life? The positive one or the negative one? So, food for thought. Thank you for watching. And Joe Biden. I need more viewers, Joe Biden. Send more viewers, more followers to my account, Joe Biden.